Mental health is powerful and it's real. I've had that challenge, and a lot of it had to do with burnout, comparing, stress, and don't want anybody to know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm depressed.
You got nobody to talk to. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, absolutely not.
Hello, and welcome to CEO Authors, the show where leaders share their stories and strategies and ideas that drive success. I'm your host, Karl Taft, and today I'm excited to welcome... Do you get your Christmas shopping done, or do you do Christmas?
I do, and I've done all that I'm going to do.
There you go. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in a whole different space.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here we go. I watched a bunch of your like podcasts or recordings, or
Sure.
tried to get a sense of you, and I
Okay.
think that you have this this, and I'm sure you're this way, this trusting demeanor about you, and I just want to hang out and have a cookie and some milk with you and pick your brain and be like, what else, right? Tell me more.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Okay.
And I know you have your mission, but I'd like to,
Sure.
I
Sure.
think there's value for a broader audience, not just your woman
Right.
direction as you describe it. Yeah.
Okay.
So here we go. Well, hello and welcome to CEO Authors, the show where we explore the ideas that leaders share with the world and the experiences that shape them. I'm your host, Karl Taft, and today I'm joined by Cassandra Crawley. Cassandra is a best-selling author and speaker who brings deep leadership experience from the Fortune Global 500 world into her work, helping people move past self-imposed barriers and live more purposeful, fulfilling lives. She's the author of Is Your Way in Your Way, a transformational coach, and the host of a podcast focused on self-discovery and growth. Cassandra, welcome.
Hi, Karl. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. So let's start with maybe early influences. Who or what in your upbringing first taught you about resilience and leadership? Where'd that come from?
Well, it came from my family, my home. And I'd like to say that my parents, I was an only child, number one, and I grew up with both parents. There was a bad cop and it was a good cop. I actually had the opportunity to understand why they did and said the things that they said as I was growing up. For example, I saw my parents as being extremely strict. You can't do this, or where you going, wherever you go, what do they do? What do their parents do? And
Right.
that used to bother me. Like, who are you? I never said that, but I was like, why do they want to know all of this stuff? Their work ethic was incredible. It was kind of like, if you're on time, you are late. I was in a family that actually I grew up or started working in the middle of, maybe they're considering it the end of the civil rights movement. I'll say it like that. And and my parents, we would have to eat together. We have breakfast together. Mom made lunch for me. Um, I would say, as a young child, I grew up in a middle class family. That's what I would say, because I didn't want for anything. We lived in a really nice neighborhood where my dad was the epitome of a beautiful lawn, and people would stop and say, "This is really nice." And then I would wish that I had an older brother, because I did the yard work. I had to sweep, and and I was like, I'm a little girl. Why am I out here doing this? So I realized that I wasn't going to have an older brother. My dad's dad was a minister. He was a Baptist minister. So I grew up in the church. My faith became very strong. I didn't recognize how strong it would become until I would say, welcome to the real world. So that's kind of what I grew up. And I think something really significant while growing up, my mother was a school teacher. And during that time, they started integration. And they asked her to go to an all-white school far away from the home. And I was voluntold that I was going to go with her. And that to me was a culture shock, because my mom and myself and the janitor and the cooks were the only African American people in the school. And that was from, for me, the 6th to the 8th grade. And that
Wow.
really kind of like, oh, this is kind of weird. Just the things people would say, how I would interact, um, even how I interacted with people that looked different than I did. So that's how I
Mm.
grew up, as that only child loving doll babies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that my upbringing is the same as yours, but I too am an only child. My mom was also a teacher. My dad owned his own business, and my icebreaker used to be, I'm the only Hawaiian kid you'll meet doesn't know how to surf because I was basically slave labor for the family business, right? And
Yes. Yeah.
an heir apparent to take it over, but I was like, I don't want to do that. So
Right.
went a different path. When you went to the school from the 6th to 8th grade, I mean, we were talking a little bit about this before we got on. You talked about your competitive nature in a way. I mean, my words, not yours, if you will.
Yes.
But did that kind of fuel kind of a competitive nature in you to kind of drive and stand out in a positive way, or did that never come up at that time?
I believe for me, I was somewhat naive. Although I knew I was different,
Hmm.
I functioned in a capacity like, hey, this is me. I know I'm
Mm,
different.
mm.
Um, I'm going to do the best that I can. And my mom's here to protect me in the event that you do something to me. So that's kind
Oh
of
yeah.
it. And I did have, if you tell me I cannot do something, or if you tell me I'm not going to do well in this class, I'm going to do well. So that's a
Mm.
mistake to tell me what I cannot do. And that helped me in my career as well.
Yeah, is that a fair statement to say that you were one of the first Black women in a corporate VP role?
Absolutely. I was actually the first African American female in all of my leadership roles, every one of them. And now this is weird when I talk about the civil rights movement, and we've not gotten this far yet, is when I graduated from college, I took advantage of the placement office where the careers, and I took full advantage of that
Mhm.
because number
Mm.
one, I wanted to be on my own. I felt my parents were strict. I'm like, you know what? When I finish college, I'm going to move and I'm going to be on my own. And the funny thing about it, the job that I accepted was in Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh,
And
interesting.
my parents were like, oh my gosh. And I was like, whoa, what,
Right.
what, what, what? So they put the fear in me a bit, but I
Mm.
took it. Um, I took it because I felt that I could do a great job, and
Yeah.
it was a great organization. It was for Chrysler organization,
Mm, mm.
and I took the job. Now, when they opened the door of the airplane, I did look to see if someone was going to shoot me, and that's real. I'm like, oh, this is scary. I wonder if anybody,
Mm,
So it was
mm.
scary, but I made it.
Yeah, yeah. Is that the ultimate job that you ended up with the VP role, or is that did you go in as a VP, or did you start there, work up, and eventually make that title?
Well, I went in as a branch manager trainee,
Mhm.
so everything that I did was a trainee, manager trainee.
Mm. Okay.
So I did work in the management capacity, but when I did, it was just, I was the only one. Like when I
Mm.
went to work in Birmingham in the office, I was the only one there.
Gotcha.
That was it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Were there any like lessons that came out of that in terms of like, just building your credibility or inclusion or anything else for that matter, while you're down in Birmingham?
Um, what helped me was I was myself. I felt comfortable being myself. And the reason that I did, because the leadership was very nice to me. Now, I remember when I relocated, of course, and I had to find a place to
Mhm.
live. And looking for a place to live, they would send me, not the people that I work for, I think it was a realtor or something, would take me to places that I wouldn't even have my dog live there. And I was very disturbed. I'm like, I can't live in these places. Oh no. And I went back to work and I told the boss, I said, there are a couple places I really like, but every time when I like something, they say, I'm sorry, we don't have any availability. And he said, oh, okay. The next day, I received a phone call, and the lady told me, congratulations. We have one availability. We are available, and you can come to this evening when you get off work. And when I went there, the entire back of the development was empty, brand new apartments. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's very interesting that
Right,
happened to me.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
How long were you at Chrysler?
I think about 4 or 5 years, I got laid off because the
Okay.
company started downsizing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like, you know, self neglect and burnout were maybe undermining your trajectory and what you wanted to accomplish with your career?
Not at that job, but as I moved
Okay.
up, yeah, we can definitely talk about burnout and self-imposed barriers and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I'm used to being on a hamster wheel. Uh,
Mhm.
I've lived it, and you know,
Yeah,
as they say on the farm, head down, butt up, right, and keep going,
yeah,
going, going. And at some
yeah,
point, you're like, "What's it all for?" And I think the more
yeah.
gray hair I get, the more as you get into the third and fourth quarter in life in your career, you start thinking like, "Why?"
Right.
So, is that something you can talk to? Is that something you lived through? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, um, as I moved to different positions, I was promoted, and individuals actually, I was always in a management position so I could learn, and then they would move me up. But when I would work with people, they were nice, but then they would say, I don't know if you'll be successful if you move up. And I'm like, well, why is that? "Well, I don't know. You're a girl and blah, blah, blah." So to make
Mm,
that long story short, it was interesting how once I became a general manager, the first female African American general manager at a Courtyard Marriott when they started. And when I became a general manager, he reported to me. And shortly after, he quit. And I was like, wow, that's very interesting. And so what happened during that time, I started acting like the hotel was my hotel. It wasn't Marriott's hotel, it was Cassandra's hotel. And because I had that mindset, boy, did I run a hotel. I was like, oh my
I
God,
bet.
this is really fun. I
I
am
bet.
really enjoying this. And they would put me in a hotel that was closer to Marriott headquarters. And I understood later on that was for a reason. I understood when I was hired by the HR guy. He called me one night and he offered me the job and I accepted, all the blah, blah, blah. And once I accepted, his response to me was, oh my gosh, I am so grateful I met my quota. Naive. I was naive. I'm like, that was something strange to say.
Hmm.
And then as I, started maturing and I got that. I'm like, that was really weird. So from that point, I said, you know what? They think I can't do the job because I was hired because I'm a black girl. But I'm gonna prove to them I can do this job.
I love
So
it.
yeah. So from there I just started moving up in the organization.
Love it. How long were you there?
I was probably there about 9 or 10 years. I moved from different hotels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what was the catalyst to leave, or what happened then? How'd that all come about?
I was called a turnaround manager. And what that meant, and that probably means to many of your listeners, if anything's broken, send Cassandra. She can fix it. She can fix the morale, the people, the finances, and all of that, and some. So they moved me to hotels that weren't doing very well.
Mm,
After I was at the flagship hotel. And that used to frustrate me because once I
right.
got into a position that I knew it should be in, they would move me again. And I'm like, I've done all this work. Now they're
Right.
moving me somewhere else. So I got a little flustered over that.
So, what was the next role or next job after the Marriott?
Yeah, my next job, I had which I didn't share when I got laid off at Chrysler. I started working in the hospitality industry for a food service company. And during that time, I knew nothing about food. I knew nothing about housekeeping. I knew nothing about engineering. So we managed these services in hotels. I mean, not hotel. Well, initially hotels, hospitals, and colleges and corporations. And I did well. I did well enough to be relocating again. um,
It's a
and
theme.
yeah, yeah, I relocated a lot. And I remember while being at the hotel, there was a gentleman that I he well, he was a he was a president actually, came to me and asked me would I work for him in a new position and being what they call a multi-skilled worker or something in the healthcare industry, whereas one person could do a number of things opposed to just having a nurse do the bedpans, the trays, the this, that.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, I'll do it. And I felt good because he had that confidence in me,
Mm,
and from there I moved to St. Louis. And he asked me to work in at a Jewish hospital with patient services. So that I enjoyed that as well. I enjoyed everything I did actually. Yeah, I actually did. Mhm.
So, my gosh. So how many years were you kind of going from, from the Chrysler position all the way through maybe when you decided to leave corporate America? Was that a 30-year journey, give or take? I'm just kind of guessing, but
Yeah, I was in the hospitality industry. I would say 30 plus years. So I'm dating
Mhm,
myself.
mhm, mhm.
But what the good thing about it, I kept my tenure. And that's why I had that longevity because the food service company purchased the Marriott side of management. So I just stayed with it. So that's why my tenure was so long. Yeah.
I see. I see. So what was the turning point to write your book? Is your way in your way?
Well, I always wanted to write a book. As you growing up, like I want to do this, I want to
Sure.
do that. I even had a vision board with my book, with my picture on the front page and me speaking and all of that. And it took me a while to write it, and that was bothering me. Why I kept saying I was going to do it but didn't. I felt like, who am I? Who would read my book? Number 2, I don't want to tell my whole story. Uh, Number 3, if my parents read it, they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, no, she didn't say that about our family." Uh, and then number 4, I had to tell my story. And I there's a chapter in my book titled "The Out of Body Experience." I had one at the airport because what I didn't share, I got promoted to another position, and I traveled probably 80% of the time,
Mm, mm.
driving and flying. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. And so while at the airport, something happened. And once I sat down and regrouped and realized what I did that I would not have normally done, something inside of me said, if you would just get out of your way, you can't imagine the things that I would do in your life. And I was like, really? Interesting. So that was the reason and why I used that title to write my book. And because so many of us are in our way. And I was in my way because of the self-doubt, lack of confidence, procrastination. They may not like me. I want to be liked. All of that stuff was just in my way. So I wanted to tell that story to the world, actually.
That that's great, and I don't need you to rehash
Oh,
what
I
you
want.
just said. No, no, no. I meant where I was going with that is the the things that are in your way, and you just mentioned a few of them, right? Imposter syndrome, self-doubt, like
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, Johari Windows type of
Good,
factors,
good,
right?
good. Uh-huh.
Are there any ones that stand out more than others in your way in terms of like really limiting, the altitude one can get in life because of self-doubt?
Well, comparison. I used to compare myself to everyone. And I did that because I was the only one. And individuals that did not look like me, we would be in a boardroom, literally a boardroom, white guys. And, you know, and a question will be asked, and, what are your thoughts? What is the solution? And I would tell them what I thought, and they would act like they didn't hear me. And the other guy said what I said, but very differently, and they accepted that. So that started my comparison game. Well, maybe I
Mm,
should have said it like this, or maybe I didn't
mm,
say the right words, or maybe I didn't conceptualize it correctly. So
yeah.
comparison was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm always comparing, but I really think the imposter syndrome is one for me that's challenging, and I know I'm not alone. There's it's funny. Guys guys are we're just wired a little differently. I'd say
Mhm, mhm.
stereotypically, right? But
Yeah.
when the wives get together and the wives start talking about their husbands and what they're dealing with, and they start comparing notes. It's fascinating to me when my wife and I have conversations. She's like, that he feels the same way. So and so tell me that her husband feels this way, and I thought, no way. There's just
Mhm.
no way that guy feels like that in
Yeah,
my mind, right?
you're
But I
right.
just think it's so common, and I think it's a difficult thing to overcome. And in the neighborhood that I'm living in, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I do see a lot of like, frankly, suicides, right? So I do think there's this idea of like mental health and putting it in perspective and like being good enough for the universe just as you are.
Mhm.
And that was one of the reasons I was so excited to just talk to you, because I think you have a lot to add here. It's not just for women; it's for all of us. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah, yeah. I have a lot to say about that, but I won't say too much, but just enough. Mental health is powerful and it's real. And I I've had that challenge, and a lot of it had to do with burnout, comparing, stress, um, and don't want anybody to know. Oh, I can't tell them
oh yeah,
I'm depressed.
yeah,
Oh
you
my
got
God.
nobody to talk to. Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh,
yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
not. And and what was so interesting to me during the pandemic,
Mm,
that's when it all came out. And I
mm,
said to myself, it just didn't happen during the pandemic. The
yeah,
pandemic gave people permission to say, I'm having some mental health issues. I'm overwhelmed. I'm burned out. And I was like, what a blessing that that came out, because if it didn't come out, there would be more people committing suicide. I've had employees that even came to me to say they didn't feel like living. And I was like, oh my God, this stuff is serious.
mm,
And a lot, and I always say stress is really not the problem. It's the fear beneath the stress. And I say that because, when you're comparing yourself, you're looking at social media, you listen to this parent, people are in your head. You should do this, you should do that. It's something beneath it. It's fear. I'm not good enough. Um, I can't know if I did that, my parents would think I'm the bad child. Um, and then because they want to be liked, they do things they know they shouldn't, get on drugs, just drink, just try to get along to get along,
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think that now you have mental breaks in regard to you can take a mental day off. You
hmm,
couldn't dare take a mental day off a few years ago because you would be known and oh, she can't handle the
right,
job or he
yeah,
can't
right,
handle the job. So we
right,
just suck it
right,
in and then we
right.
blow up.
Yeah.
We blow up.
So anybody going through some of these issues, right? What would you say is, or what have you seen work to kind of alleviate some of that pressure buildup?
Someone to talk to, someone that you trust. And that's the whole thing about trust. It takes a while to get it, but only a
Yeah.
minute for it to go away. And and somebody that's approachable, someone that has a presence. And we know if somebody's real. I know. I can't say everybody, but I know. I'm very discerning, and I can tell when somebody's not. Nah. Mm-mm. And especially for me being a woman, I've had women to be my roughest, toughest opponents. Men have reported to me, women have reported to me, and it has just been fascinating to me how their behavior is towards me. And I used to say, I wish I could turn everybody into a robot. And that way they'll do what I say. I
Mm,
won't get no pushback. And, you think you're this and you think you're that and, that kind of thing. But I think just having someone to talk to, and I think focus groups are great.
mm,
Even and and corporations, they have affinity groups. Well, not anymore, but the African American group, women groups, all of
mm,
that. It
mhm.
would be great to talk about mental health, but it's going to take a minute because everybody's not going to be open. Everybody's not, but it's more mental health issues out there than people know.
I don't know. I don't know what the numbers say, but I agree with that statement 100%.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Very high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Okay.
high.
We'll agree on that. Shouldn't chuckle
Yeah.
about, but
Yeah.
okay. Okay. Yeah, that's deep. That's I hate it's always tough to kind of flag like here's the challenge, and then it's having somebody to talk to, but it's not an easy fix what we're discussing here, I don't
No,
think.
it's not.
Right.
Mm-mm.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's becoming more and more common than it used to be even 10 years ago, in my opinion, or maybe not. Maybe it was there, and as you said, COVID and some of these other things kind of
Mhm.
let it let
Mhm.
it boil to the surface, right? But
Mhm. Yeah. And Carl, one of the things I did, and I was very reluctant about putting it in my book.
yeah.
I talked about mental illness, physical challenges. And one of the things I realized, the feedback is just unbelievable. So it's kind of like an onion that's peeling. I've
Yeah.
had people contact me through my email just to
Yeah.
share with me how grateful they are to bring it up because they can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world
Yeah.
needs more of it. That's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
what you're doing. So, as it pertains to legacy and succession, looking back, what would you tell, corporate leaders about building cultures that value well-being and inclusion as strategic assets? And I say this because I think there's so much off balance sheet, off P&L value to having a good team. But it's so difficult, in my opinion, to have it flush out in something that somebody can say, here, this is what this means to us and why we do it. Can you
Mhm.
maybe speak to that?
Mhm. I think being present is critical, and not just in the body, but your actions and your intentions. And, you know, it in the event that you have someone that you report to that's like that, it's easier. You have more productivity. I recall having workers that if Jill worked this weekend, people wouldn't show up. Yeah, Cassandra worked, everybody shows up. And they were like, well, what is that about? Um, I was real.
Mm,
I didn't play. I let you
mm,
know I was upfront. And, this is a cliche maybe, but do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. And that's how I operated. And when something happens to that leader that's
yeah,
devastating, they come
yeah,
down and they're more humble. They understand. the dynamics of what's really going on with people. And
Yeah, that's right.
authenticity is critical. And a lot of my leaders, I know CEOs, I've worked with them. It's about the bottom line.
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
make it known, and then they lay you off. They talk to you today, and then they don't confront you, but somebody else tells you you're no longer needed. I mean,
yeah,
come on. So that's
yeah.
why loyalty is really not there anymore.
Man. So I feel like so doom and gloom just talking to you about this. So, is it going to get worse? I mean, hamster wheels accelerating, right? Got to do more with less, right? I just
Yep,
had another guest
that's right.
talking about, AI is making people initiate, a dozen changes a year, where historically it used to be five changes a year,
That's
right?
right.
And it's
That's
like
right.
so, and then the people have to adapt and integrate it and assimilate to these new things, and it's like,
Right.
whoa. So
Right.
where I mean, so with the work that you're doing, right, and the vision that you have, and you're trying to get the word out and trying to help as many people as you have, like what how do you accomplish that? Where do you want to take things? Love to get your thoughts.
Yeah, that's my thing. Um, I read an article about a lady by the name of Bonnie Ware. Bonnie Ware was a hospice nurse, and you may have heard of her book. She kind of talked about people that were transitioning. She decided that she wanted to find out did they have any regrets, right? And there were 5 regrets, and I see people doing it now, and they're very similar. But there were 2 that bothered me really bad. The 3 was, I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I'd have spent more time with family. I wish I would have traveled. But the 2 that got me is I wish I could have been true to myself, and I wish I could have been happier. And when I saw that, I'm like, isn't that interesting? Am I true to myself? Am I happy? What does happy look like? What is that? And that's why, when I finished writing the book, I'm like, thank you, I'm done. I said I was going to do it, da da da. And all of a sudden, something said, you are not done. You just got started.
Right.
When much is given, much is required. So my thing is, are you living your best life on your terms? And people don't even know what that looks like. So I dive in and let's talk about what that best life is. People have it. We're all gifted with something. There's something that we should be doing that we're not. And we know in our minds there's something there, but we are so stuck. So my thing is I help people get unstuck. And my clients, let's talk about what it is that you want to accomplish. It can change over time because everybody's fixated on their purpose. What's my purpose? Well, when my parents were sick, my purpose was to take care of them. When you got married, my purpose was to take care of my husband. That's a different story. But I mean, purpose has changed. There's no big purpose, there's no little purpose, but there is something because once you find out, when you wake up in the morning, man, you'll feel so good. I'm like, I can't wait to get up to do this thing. I just can't wait. And when I look at back over my life and the change agent, the all the things I've done, the speaking, it was all purposeful for me to do what I'm doing today. And that's just, I was a people person. I didn't realize it. I'm just
Yeah.
going to fix
Yeah.
this problem that you had. And to me, it was simple.
I don't want you to give away any secret sauce on this call per se, but does your book talk about that? How to be happier? How to be true to yourself? Are there any
Um,
nuggets in there? Or if somebody's looking for that, where could they go? Maybe that's the right question.
that's why one of the reasons I started my podcast, and my podcast is Your Way and Your Way. And
Yeah,
I actually talk to individuals that were in a bad situation. Many of
yeah,
them were, but some of them weren't. And then they finally identified what it is that will make them happy.
yeah,
So in my book, I talk about, I, I'm at a point now, I believe in joy more than happiness because happy is when I got my car I always wanted. I was happy, you know. Okay, happiness is gone. But joy to me is something that's no one, no circumstance can take it away from me. So I'd rather be a joyful person than a happy person. I'd rather have peace. than anything, because peace to me is priceless. So I always say, be my client, be in my group, or whatever, but let's talk about that, because I don't want anyone to pass with regrets. I want my
Uh,
story to be, well done, Cassandra, my good and faithful servant. I don't want to say, I should have done this. My glass, I want to be filling over, overflowing.
yeah, yeah, agreed, 100%.
Yeah,
So it's been a good call. I hope this was a good conversation for you. I certainly
yeah, it
enjoyed it.
was. Thank you. Thank you.
Um, for our listeners that want to learn more about you, what you do, your book, where could they go?
They could go to my website, CassandraCrawley.com. I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, under Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And my email is mayo@CassandraCrawley.com. So all you have to do is put my name in the URL, and my name, it just pops up. I'm just
Got you.
popping up.
Now is a time in our podcast where we get to ask our special guest question round, if you will. And so this is where our previous guest asked a question, not knowing that you would be the person they would be asking it to. Okay. And the question is this: as technology reshapes how we work and make decisions, what do you think becomes harder for leaders, especially when it comes to people, culture, and judgment?
The hardest thing is to learn. When you've been doing something for a while, like this generation grew up on social media, they grew up with computers. you
Mm.
know um what Okay, I use AI, but what is AI? What do you do with it? It's to learn.
Mm-hmm.
In other
Mm-hmm.
words, keep up with what's going on. It's just like the car business. They didn't keep it up. So therefore the foreign cars, you got to stay. You can't get stagnant in what you're doing, because things will change every day, and if you're not up with the times, you will be left behind.
Fair
So,
enough.
yeah.
And so now you get the microphone. Do you have a question for our next mystery guest?
Mhm. My question would be, if I gave you a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, where would you rate yourself on that scale as to whether you are living your best life on your terms? What number are you today?
God, it's just popping up. Great.
Yeah.
Um, this is great. Thanks again, Cassandra. Really
Thank
appreciate your time.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.